Greetings comic lovers and welcome back to Casually Comics, the channel where we chat all things comics, from reviews of comics new and old to history to anecdotes to really wherever our whims take us. Today it's time to take a look back at an arc that for many fans was a low point, one they feared would never end, or for those who did enjoy it, worried that it would ultimately not matter. An arc shaped by the history of attempts made to end the character made before it, as well as what occurred during the actual run itself. It's time to talk about Ric Grayson, so strap in as we take a look at how Dick went to Rick and then back again, and why it caused so much upset and became a bit of a joke in some circles. But before we get started, I'm Sasha, and if you're enjoying this content, you know what to do. Hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and join us on this comic book journey. So we're gonna do an overview of everything that went down. Ric Grayson is the name of the character Dick Grayson after he suffered a traumatic brain injury after being shot in the head by the KGBeast. It's also the colloquial name given to the arc, the entirety of this time period, the Ric Grayson era, the time when he was neither Dick Grayson or Nightwing, because there was a period during this where he was also not Nightwing. Meaning, yes, you were reading a comic where the title character was not the main superhero. Always a risk, hard to pull off, usually a temp gimmick for sales. Dick Grayson got shot in Batman 55 during the Tom King run on the series on September 19th, 2018, and from there, the rumblings began. That was the date the comic was released, not the date he was actually shot. There were many who weren't thrilled that such a prominent change would have occurred outside of Nightwing's own series, which was running concurrently, meaning you were going to be forced into this arc whether you wanted it or not, all because of what was happening in Batman's book. Similar to how some were angered about the ripple effect of Barbara being shot, only she wasn't in her own ongoing comic book at the time. As readers, we wouldn't get a full look into the moments after this until Nightwing Annual number 2 in October of 2019, over a year later. For yes, the Ric Grayson arc lasted years. It only concluded during the Joker War, with some feeling that Nightwing 75 in 2020 marks the full return to the era of Dick Grayson, while others may mark the first moment when he regained his memory as that point. Or maybe a slight bit later, but we can safely say that it ended in late 2020. Here lies Ric Grayson, 2018 to 2020. Now right away there were some questions narratively. Why did this happen and the like? If the KGBeast was sent to assassinate Nightwing, then why did he have to wait till he was in Gotham with Batman to do it? That and much, much more. Of course the answer is so it would generate buzz and sales and be a moment in the Batman book. But underneath it was an underlying fear from fans. A fear in certain fans' minds that it may prove permanent. Now why would that be a concern? Big plot pivots happen all the time, and they tend to just be gimmicks. It's rare that changes become permanent. But Nightwing is positioned uniquely in terms of those concerns. For one thing, he's one of the rare characters who was allowed to undergo a permanent shift, going from Robin to Nightwing, and aging. There's no returning Dick to the role of Boy Wonder anymore outside of adaptation, or Elseworld story, or a story taking place in the past. 2. There is a long history at DC Comics, specifically under Dan Didio, of trying to kill off Nightwing. It was an idea that's been flirted with for years, and became overtly known during Infinite Crisis. That in 2005. Bloodhaven was even nuked with Nightwing allegedly in it, and there were stories written with Jason Todd as Nightwing, for there was a period where he was going to be the replacement Nightwing, and then to undo that, there was an arc where there were 2 of them, and Nightwing had to clear his reputation because Jason was killing people. Then Jason turned into a tentacle monster. It was a storyline so bizarre, I was convinced for years that I dreamed it. You know I wouldn't make a statement that big about how there were internal forces who wanted to end a character without some receipts. I've got quotes from the man himself. Multiple quotes from different eras. Behold quotes from the year 2020. Dick Grayson's gonna get older than Bruce Wayne at some point, because Bruce doesn't age, and Dick Grayson's gonna be the older guy if he does keep growing up. Therefore, those things constantly force the reboots that we're faced with, because it creates these log jams and these multiple interpretations of characters all sharing the same name. Basically, if you boil that down, that's saying that legacy characters are the cause of confusion in continuity. He goes on. For me with Dick Grayson, the issue wasn't about the fact that I didn't like the character. In fact, when I said we should kill Dick Grayson, it was purely story driven. I felt the death of one of the characters that touched them all in a way was going to be the perfect way to do that. Dick Grayson was that character. I felt he was the character that everybody had such a great affinity and love for. Yes, everybody loves him. Kill him. By putting him in that role, that if he died, he would bring Superman and Batman together again and unite our heroes against the great threat. I think that's a noble death, and I think that's something that had value. Same type of death happened in Crisis on Infinite Earths. You want to have that level of importance. Except people didn't like those deaths either. So that sounds pretty reasonable-ish. You can follow that a bit, right? Well, let's see what he said in 2018. That last response has been honed after years of being asked this question. In an interview at New York Comic Con in 2018, he went a bit deeper into the whole aging thing. Why do people love Nightwing? Because he ages with you. That is part of it, but of course there are many who would argue that that's not the core reason that those who enjoy Nightwing enjoy him. Many love Nightwing for the growth that Dick undergoes, from Robin to Nightwing. It's more about becoming your own person for many fans, not about the act of physically aging. You don't celebrate the fact that Dick went from 18 to 19, you celebrate the fact that he went from Robin to Nightwing. In the same interview, he ended up making comments about how he felt that a married Batman was an Elseworlds Batman. This was when people were still excited for the Bat-Cat wedding and held out hope that it was going to happen. They had a no marriage mandate. It was never gonna happen. There are also jokes he's made about the character's name and not liking that, as it can be used for innumerable penis and sex jokes. This has been an open secret amongst fans for many years. Rumors have swirled that Nightwing's potentially not safe. That made fans extra protective of Nightwing and extremely wary of this change, for many felt like this was a way to kill Nightwing without actually doing it. Get him out of the way as that character and change his name, while keeping him around as a husk of himself. Which brings us to Ric. The gunshot led into an amnesia arc, and Dick developing a different personality and characteristics, as well as changing his name and distancing himself from the Bat family, actively rejecting their attempts to reach out to him at points, particularly Barbara, leading to this now infamous panel, the "It's my life and you don't like it, leave" panel. So at this point, these changes had become firmly rooted within his own book. He would slowly stop showing up in the other books. So despite it not starting there, Ric would hang around in his own book for 2 years. On the surface, it doesn't sound like a horrible idea. In fact, memory loss is a classic trope, and you can mine a lot of drama out of it. And there were admittedly some heart-wrenching and effective moments during this arc, particularly in the aforementioned Nightwing annual. The thing for many fans of Nightwing was that it undid a lot of the things they loved about the character, and left them a bit confused as to his place in the DC universe. While Didio seemed a bit perplexed as to just what Dick Grayson's role was to be, fans of the character felt they had it figured out. He was Nightwing, a beacon of hope in the Batman universe, friend to most, source of optimism, a representation of the idea that something good could come from bad, that darkness need not beget more darkness. Now not everyone goes for that, but that's a discussion for another day. Titan certainly doesn't go for it. Batman. In transforming into Ric, the character got a new attitude, one that was more abrasive, a bit rougher and liking to hang with a new crowd. This actually makes sense, as amnesia can cause significant personality shifts. When one is divorced from their memories, that's the core of what makes you you, so of course there'd be changes. And they can drive one away from people who formerly meant a lot to them. Sometimes they can form new meaningful relationships with said people, but not always. And not everybody ever remembers their former lives. Sometimes it's just gone. However, in terms of the Bat family mythos, they already had edgy, angsty characters who didn't necessarily want to hang out or play well with others. So it felt that Nightwing had gone from someone unique in the Batman mythos to someone we'd seen many times before. Not to mention that one of the things people loved about Dick was his ability to slot in and be friends anywhere with anyone. The rich history and connection he had with characters in the Bat family beyond and just the DC universe itself, having been around since 1940. Son to Batman, father to Damian essentially and how he treated him, brother to Tim and Jason, and to a lesser extent Cass and Stephanie, shoulder and occasional lover to Barbara and the Huntress pre-New 52, nephew essentially to Superman, valued friend and mentor to Titans, and outsiders. Even if not all of these things were in continuity, they echoed. They had formed the character, and for many, regardless of what was currently canon, informed how they felt about the character. To not have that, he just felt a bit adrift and like he was missing one of the key components that made him a compelling character. He didn't feel grounded anymore. Even if these people weren't constantly showing up in Dick's book, you knew that they were around and that they mattered. Hence why in that quote it was said that his death would be so significant. Ric didn't have that. It also just felt odd that after the first little bit, the Bat family essentially stopped reaching out to him. It made many people feel out of character. And it also made the whole event feel insular. Whereas Nightwing's book, as just mentioned, used to feel more connected, and now it felt like just a separate piece in a corner. As if we're doomed to either phase out of existence or not matter at all. There were also lots of jokes made at Dick's expense in the first little bit. Lots of naming jokes in particular, like, who would name themselves Dick? Dick's funny. Dick, Dick, Dick. At the start of this arc, Ric got a job driving a cab and gave up being Nightwing, met a nice new girl, Bee, and was trying to figure out who he was. A new group of heroes emerged, the Nightwings, founded by police detective Alphonse Sapienza. They rose up to fill the gap, and were actually a group that Ric Grayson would join, so that he was technically Nightwing again. Hence, you were reading a book that still had your title character be Nightwing in a capacity, even if he wasn't the sole Nightwing. He was also no longer in his costume. Instead, his iconic look was worn by the leader of the Nightwings, and he was given a different look, including some Fury Road grease paint eyeshadow. It was part of why him returning to his original costume became such a big part of him returning to being Dick Grayson. Now it's easy to toss this entire arc out, and many people do, but it wasn't all bad. It had its moments. One strong point was Bee Bennett. The comic worked hard to make her own character, and she had a solid relationship with Ric, accepting him as he was, and hence she acted as a grounding force and served as a good counterpoint. When his family did show up, she represented the value in his new life light, and was meant to create a bit of a bridge and also cause one to ask, do we actually want Dick back? The thing was, the answer was yes, a resounding yes, the entire time. So no matter how solid certain moments were, or how much new characters were developed, in a way they were doomed, destined to be part of an arc that many didn't want, felt was being poorly handled, or going on too long, or set to be relegated to the that was the thing that happened bin, which introduces the main problem with this arc. How would it be impactful? It couldn't be by having Dick remain Rick. Dick Grayson is too beloved of a character, and Rick was just not filling that void. In fact, he was actually serving to affirm for most fans what they liked about Dick in the first place. Which is not to say that he didn't have fans, because he did. For those fans who were enjoying Rick, there was a bit of a tension, a sense of what's the point? That he was just going to be permanently erased. Since when Dick did recover his memories, it was doubtful it would be handled in a he's Rick and Dick way. Instead, what was more likely appears to be the route chosen at the time of this recording, the subsuming of Ric Grayson. Nightwing 75 and 76 have dealt the most directly with Dick regaining his memories during Joker War, which was handled very abruptly. One moment they were gone and he had Dickie Boy's memories. That was the version of himself that the Joker created, where he changed his memories to make him think that he was the Joker's son. And then he was Dick again. He shook it off. Although to the book's credit, there had been a Talon arc a bit prior that had dealt with him starting to have flashes of Dick's life and memories and starting to feel a bit uncertain in his Ricky skin. While issue 75 does put forth the idea that Dick does feel a bit out of place and uncertain as to who he is, it also showcases that it's not really going to explore this fully, with him telling B they can go back to before. He's the same person. Except, really, he shouldn't be. But the comic is treating him like he is. This is most likely because they are very distinct, and since most people didn't like Rick, they're trying to distance him as much from that as possible. So it's unlikely you'll see many of Rick's tendencies now that he's returned. As interesting as that has the potential to be, and it would redeem the arc a bit by having it matter. But the impact it would have had is not one that most fans would have want, changing Dick Grayson from the core of who he was. This does leave those who liked Rick in that quagmire of, well, I guess it didn't matter, dude. But hey, if you enjoyed it, it was not a waste of time. It was a cool set of stories you got to experience. You can just cut it off at the return of Dick, just be like, nope, that's over there. And as an out-of-character Superman story once told me, over there will take care of itself. Issue 76 is our full circle issue. KGBeast is back, and he's gonna take down Nightwing once and for all, and B is caught in the crossfire. It is satisfying to see him take down KGBeast. I mean, it's not as satisfying as when Batman left him to starve to death in the subway, but I'll take it. It is also a celebration of Dick, and if you laughed, then you're part of the reason that Dan Didio wanted him dead. You're part of the problem, and so am I, because I left. We get lines like B saying she feels like she's seeing Dick Grayson for the first time, and Dick claims in his own inner monologue that he remembers everything he felt as Rick, including loving her. But then it gets a little insulting and kinda slaps you in the face, especially if you enjoyed her and Rick. He lies to her, tells her that the feelings didn't come back, and the narration boxes tell us it's for her own good. Excuse me, hi, why is this necessary? We could have just had this be true, that his memories came back, but the feelings were no longer associated because they didn't match up with all of his prior experiences, which would have altered his personality yet again. It could have been a subtle shift, but it could very well have altered how he felt about her, remembering all of his past loves, for instance. The Nightwings are similarly dismissed. He essentially shows up, tells them he's back, for good, and that they need to stop for their own safety, as their leader had been severely injured. And they just agree and say they were in over their heads, but will be around if he needs them, which will potentially be never. But you never know. Even if you're waiting for Dick to come back, this made what happened before feel extra irrelevant. And this is after he had a conversation with Batman about how no one can escape the abyss. Since when has he listened to conversations like that? He says they can be friends, and that goes great. She says that she never wants to speak to him again. And so he takes off his mask to cry, before putting it back on to embrace being Nightwing. It is safe to say that this did not stick the landing. It must be said there is some annoyance at the fan annoyance, because isn't this what everyone wanted? Nightwing back? These stories are trying to give fans what they said they wanted. And while true, the gripes are more with execution. Now you have a conclusion that feels out of character for Dick and is unsatisfying for fans of Rick. Just not great for everybody, except, you know, at least Nightwing's back. Now admittedly this could change, and there could be an attempt to fold what happened here into the greater Nightwing mythos. But it would also be a lot easier to just not do that. At the time of this recording, with DC parsing back, it remains to be seen what will occur. The Ric Grayson arc already gave integrating its characters a bit of an uphill battle, because it separated them so much from the Batman mythos in general, although it did have B and Barbara be friends. So now it's a bit harder to make everything fit together. Not impossible, but harder, and the question is it something that's wanted by either fans or the creatives behind the scenes. Personally, I liked B a lot and hope they can find a way to let her stick around. And do not subscribe to that whole, oh, she was a civilian, so they could never be. If I wanted that, I'd go read some more Superman's girlfriend Lois Lane. The Rick arc is over, and we are free. It had its highs, it had its lows. Many will now be more willing to give it a go and take a hard look at it, secure in the knowledge that it ended. In its defense, it did have some ideas that were very true to the core of Dick Grayson. One in particular, in my opinion anyway. That was the idea that no matter what, the character was a hero. Rick goes on a journey to discover who he is, and ultimately that is a hero, Nightwing. It's kinda sweet, the idea that regardless of backstory, he would have ended up a protector. I think it's sweet anyway. But this arc in general will most likely be remembered as a misstep, and an arc that went on too long, joining the likes of, say, Mod Wonder Woman. Though at least this one didn't last 6 years. I'm glad it's done. It was not my favorite era of Nightwing, but it was also not the worst Nightwing thing I can remember happening. Tarantula. But now I want to hear what you guys thought. Tell me about your time with Rick. Did you like this arc? Are you glad it's over? Approve of how it ended? Hope to see more of any of the characters? Sick of all of the haters? Feel Nightwing is overrated? Just want to leave a pervy comment about his butt? I want to hear it all. Share all your thoughts down below. While you're down there, please do all the YouTube things. Like, share, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell notification so that you never miss a vid. Thanks so much for taking some time every day to spend it discussing comics with me. I always appreciate it, and I'll see you again soon.